Welcome to the Wall Street Crossover Show, brought to you by Tip TV in conjunction with our sponsors, Admiral Markets. It gives me great pleasure to reintroduce Mr. Darren Sinden, market commentator for Admiral Markets. Darren, good lunchtime.
Yes, I suppose it is good lunchtime.
How the devil are you, sir?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you.
If you're watching for the first time, number of slides. If there's any extra content you want to see, please let us know, okay? Because we're always open to thoughts, feedback and the likes.
Suggestions, anything you think we can improve on, then please, do write into the show. Let us know. We'd love to hear what you think about it.
Perfect. Okay, let's go to the first slide of the day. Data released over the European session. What's caught your eye this morning?
The major thing, I think, was these German PPI numbers, Producer Price Index numbers for June, both on a month-on-month basis. The month-on-month number, minus 0.1% against a forecast of 0.0%, so flat. So deflationary at the actual result versus a flat forecast. And then year-on-year, minus 1.4% versus the forecast of minus 1.3%. So despite German economy going great guns, despite the ECB QE efforts and all the hopes of a recovery,
there's still deflation, isn't there?
It's going to be very difficult to squeeze this out. The Japanese will tell you once you've got it, it keeps coming around in bouts. It's very hard to squeeze it out of the economy, particularly in a modern world where prices are constantly being driven down by increasing competition and productivity.
Right.
That's good for consumers, not necessarily good for global economies.
Understood. And in terms of house prices?
Okay, well, we're always talking about UK house prices, obviously, and in the context of this show, we'd like one indicator that tells the whole picture, but we don't have that. So today we've got, or have had, I should say, the Rightmove house price indicator. Those that don't know, Rightmove is one of our big online estate agency portals. Year on year, UK house prices are up 5.1%. If you look back to the same period in 2014, they were up 4.5%. So they continue to grow. There's a bit of a disconnect between the year on year number and the month-on-month number, which grew only by 0.1% versus the prior plus 3%. What that might tell you is that perhaps that rate of change is slowing down. We need to see a couple more data points to judge that. Nonetheless, prices are higher. Something we touched on when I was on the programme earlier this morning. Yeah,
if you're into your precious metals, please go back to the Tip TV website and look at the 10-minute segment Darren did on precious metals. Very, very thought-provoking.
Gold sold off sharply in Asian trade to test new 5-year lows. And against that, going the other way, European equities are on course for their 9th straight day of gains. Very unusual for markets to trend in any direction for 9 days. Or longer. Remains to be seen how long this can continue.
As the Japanese would say, the stomach is almost full.
It is, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. European movers.
Okay, a couple of names have taken my eye today. First of all, Aveva, AVVLM, software and engineering company, 493 and a half pence, up 27.8%. Why? Simply because Schneider Electrical, SU, particularly in France, there to take a controlling interest in the company in what's effectively a reverse takeover. So that's to some extent comes out of the blue, and the prices reacted accordingly. And then something a bit more pedestrian, but LVMH, Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy, that's the ticker MC in Paris, €169.85, up 1.75% this morning. What's behind that? Well, JP Morgan have quite a detailed strategy note out today that says, amongst other things, that you shouldn't sell consumer cyclicals on a Chinese slowdown because the sector valuations there are already at a big discount, and they flag luxury goods, which of course is where LVMH lives, and the auto sector amongst their favourite picks there. So if you've got a contrarian view as they have there on the China story, that's perhaps the way to play it.
Understood. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide even. M&A rumours and movers.
Okay, well, Lockheed Martin, LMT in the US, said to be going to buy Sikorsky aircraft from their big rivals United Technology, UTX. for a deal between $8 and $9 billion. Sikorsky Aircraft, probably best known as the manufacturer of the Black Hawk helicopter. They make other helicopters.
Seen those in a few movies.
Yeah, indeed, yep. But both Lockheed and UTX shares were pretty much unmoved pre-market, but the deal could actually be confirmed today, and ahead of the earnings of both companies, which report tomorrow, on Tuesday. This will be Lockheed's biggest deal for 2 decades if it goes ahead, and this will also be the first major play by the new boss of United Technologies, a chap called Greg Hayes, who got promoted in November. There was a potential counter bidder for this helicopter business, which UTX signalled was for sale, and that was Textron in the US, TXT, where they dropped out after the UTX apparently raised the price. So if the deal is announced and does go forward, it will be subject to scrutiny from the US Department of Defence, who probably likely to wave it through. But it could also incur some Department of Justice antitrust review scrutiny as well, who may take a different view, because Lockheed would become the biggest aerospace supplier to the US military if that deal went through. So there might be some concern about too many eggs in one basket there of defence spending. Nonetheless, we'll hear more about that, I think, later on today.
Understood. So let's go on to the next slide. US data points to keep an eye on. I think it's a quiet day today, isn't it?
Yes, actually no US data points.
Wow.
There are some sort of bog standard auctions of bills and bonds, but nothing on the macro data front today. Keep in mind it's quite a thin week, but there is PMI data on Friday, which I think we should all be paying attention to. There's also a bit of a build-up from today in terms of earnings.
Okay.
So on the slate today, we've got Morgan Stanley, Halliburton, and IBM, and more than that, but those are the main players. And then tomorrow, just looking forward, so if we could, we've got Apple figures. Don't forget that Apple is pretty significant because it represents
13% of NASDAQ. I didn't know that.
Thereabouts. Weightings do change, but that's roughly what they are. Just shows how that company's grown and how important it is.
Well, Google share price was up 14% on Friday, wasn't it?
Yeah,
extraordinary.
Interesting. Google's probably just under 4% weighting to compare. Okay. So Apple is the daddy in that space.
Good homework. Okay, so let's move on to the final slide. The US pre-market movers and some chart points.
Okay, just the one stock to keep an eye on. It's NCR, the old National Cash Register Corporation. NCR US, the ticker. $30.24. They're up 2.58% in the aftermarket on Friday, and the reason is that there's talk that the ATM maker, which is what they basically are now, they do machines that distribute money for banks, maybe the subject of a $9 billion bid. It's pretty much known that the company's been up for sale. They were trying to attract private equity buyers. It's suggested that they're looking for offers around $36 per share. They apparently have extended the deadline for bids out to the 26th of July. Watch this space, really. The press comments at the weekend seem to think that something could be happening there. And then in terms of levels today, European equities, as I said, have edged a bit higher, so we're able to tighten up some of the ranges if they're a bit higher up the levels, as it were. So 67.70 now the downside in the FTSE, plays 68.20 to the upside. For the DAX, 11,750 versus 11,805. I must just point out that DAX chart is full of gaps.
Yep.
There are 4 or 5 to the downside, so we have to look and see if they're ever going to get filled. To the S&P then, 21.19 plays 21.30 there, the range, fairly tight candle on Friday there, and Dow, the Dow Industrials, 18,050 plays 18,131. Both would like to probably try and push higher, I think. Euro dollar, that 108.60 level seems well, there it is. It's gone from the support and turned up on the resistance. So 108.13 to the downside now. 108.60. What we saw as key support from March has now taken the
into resistance.
Aussie dollar, US dollar just tightened it here from last week. So 73.50 now is our downside level, plays 73.96 to the upside. Dollar yen, holiday in Japan, so we're not expecting too much.
Yep, good point.
But too much fireworks. However, having said that, we have edged back above 124, so 124.02 now on the downside, plays 124.42 to the upside. And cable's given a bit of ground today, 155.40 now on the downside, plays 156.00. I've gone for on the upside.
Perfect. Okay, Darren Sinden, market commentator, Admiral Markets. Thank you for that. That wraps up the Wall Street Crossover Show. We'll be back at 1 p.m. tomorrow for the Wall Street Crossover Show. Normal trading show at 10 a.m. Have a good day. Thank you.